Okay, if your job is to complete the side views, this process is a little bit different than a top and bottom view. However, because of the fact that we have 3 different sides or 2 different sides to choose from, most of you, if you're in 6th grade, you will be making a truss pattern just like this. If you're in 7th grade, you'll be making a choice of either a truss, an arch, or a triangle. I'm going to show you how to begin building a truss design. So for a truss design, what you'll need is you'll need to start by building the outside frame first. That will consist of the top piece, the bottom piece, and the 2 end pieces. As you can see, I already have the bottom stick cut and pinned in place. It was simply marked and cut to the marker length that was already drawn on the design and cross pinned in place. I have a set of pins on this end, a set of pins on this end, and a set of pins in the middle. The purpose of having pins in the center is to keep this one big long piece right here from bowing downward or curving inward, because we're going to eventually, when this view is built, we're going to take the pins out, stand it straight up and down, and glue it directly on top of the bottom view. So what we need to do is start by taking a look at the pinning. If you take a look at the pinning that I have right here, the cross pins, I'll zoom in a little bit for you. As you can see, I have one pin coming toward me, one pin going away from me. Is shaping like a letter X over the top of the piece of wood. That holds the piece of wood in place and keeps it from moving as we're continuing to work on our other lines in our design. So cross pinning, very important process to holding your project in place. So now that I have the bottom piece completed, the next thing I want to do is do the top piece. We'll do the 2 end pieces last. So we'll start out, if you take a look at the design, this orange line represents the top piece. It stops right here and right here. We're going to have to cut it just a little bit longer than this design because we're going to cut our 2 end pieces to fit in between the top and bottom piece. So I'm going to lay my stick so it hangs over just about 1/8 of an inch, which is the thickness of this balsa wood. The balsa wood is 1/8 of an inch thick. I want to go 1/8 of an inch past the design when I'm cutting and marking and cutting. So I'm going to go about 1/8 of an inch over on this side, about 1/8 of an inch over on this side, and mark it like so. Now when you're cutting the pieces of wood, take your scissors, take the top blade of the scissors and cut so that the top blade is lined up with your marker line. Cut straight down toward the table. Okay? As you're cutting down toward the table, that helps give you a very straight cut if your hands are straight up and down or parallel to the table. Now that I set that in place there, next thing I want to do is cross pin it down. So I don't need to do 3 sets of pins on this one because it's a little bit shorter in length. So all I have to do is do 1 set on this side of my center line, and the center line would be this line right here, and I'm going to do 1 set of pins on this side. Now with the top and bottom pieces in place, the next thing I want to do my diagonals. So for a diagonal line, again, we want this piece to fit underneath the top piece and rest on top of the bottom piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little mark underneath here. That's where it's going to connect to, and I'm going to place a mark on top of here. That's where it's going to rest on top. Set your piece of wood on your marker line, and now we need to know what parallel lines are. Parallel lines look like these 2 lines right here, or like lines on graph paper. They're lines that are side by side that never intersect. So what I want to do is take, and this first line that I marked up here, I want to now mark a parallel line on my stick that I'm getting ready to cut. So this line is now parallel to that edge it's going to connect to. When I get ready to cut that piece, what I want to do is I want to go ahead, and what I should do for you guys is to zoom in a little bit here so that you can see exactly how I marked that piece with parallel lines. So I'm going to zoom in, and hopefully you saw that to where I have to mark and cut it right underneath here now. There's that stick again, and I marked a parallel line. And so what I'll do now is take my scissors, and with my scissors I want to make sure the top blade lines up with my marker line that I just did, and make a cut straight down toward the table. Okay. I turn this around and rest it right back on top. Now you can see that 1/8 of an inch thickness that we did on the overhang will end up right there. What I need to do now is mark the other end. So to mark the other end, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay, now that I have the top end marked and cut in place, I'm now going to rest the stick on top of my bottom piece. While it's resting on top, I'm going to go ahead and mark a parallel line going across this edge right here. As you can see, it's going to continue going straight through, and that's where I will make my second cut. So again, with the second cut, what I'll need to do is once again line up the blade of the scissors. And again, I'm using the back of the scissors when I cut. Line up the blade of the scissors with the marker line I just made and cut straight down toward the table. When I put these two pieces in place, I want to make sure that they fit nice and tight like that. Now I have one end cut. So what I'll do is we're going to glue that in place. So what I'm going to need to do is put some glue in a glue lid, and the amount of glue you want to put in there is about the diameter of a dime. Okay, we don't want to fill up the entire lid because this is wood glue and it dries fast. So as you can see, it's already drying on the tip, so please make sure the caps are closed. So in open position to fill it up, please close it when you're not using it so that the glue doesn't dry out. We'll take the two ends that we just cut. I'm going to dip them in the glue, and you want to be generous with your glue so that it sticks in between the joints. So now I can set it in place. Now what I need to do is that this is now an outside frame piece. So what I have to do to the outside frame pieces is pin them down. So again, I'm going to cross pin over the top and over the bottom. So I have one pin coming toward me. I have one pin going away from me, shaping a letter X. And now I have that secured in place. I'm going to do the same thing down here, and here's where you want to make sure when you're pinning that everything lines up on the marker lines that you originally color coded. So now my cross pinning is finished there, and now I can begin working on the other end.